Welcome YIN FAM back to another story time. So, man, just a little side note already. I tried to record this video journal multiple times and figured out that for multiple attempts, the audio wasn't even on. So, the audio is back on. So, we remove! All right, let's do it. So, um, I went to Brazil to visit a girl I liked. Was it worth it? So let me put you guys in my shoes and kind of give you guys a feel for the situation. So I met this girl in Alicante, Spain in September 2022. And it was one of those moments where there was instant connection. And she didn't speak much English. And my Spanish was atrocious at the time. This was at the start of my program in Spain where I was learning the language, so didn't have the ability to speak it just yet. But um, through her intermediate level of English, we really got along. And it was one of those rare instances where you didn't need many words to connect with somebody. So after that day we met, we split apart into different parts of Spain, and we didn't know if we were going to see each other. But through time and building our relationship online, we had a few more opportunities to see each other. And the last time that I saw her was an amazing experience, and we really grew very close to each other. And by this point, I really liked this girl. So I was like, if there's another opportunity to see her, I'm taking it. And the opportunity was there to visit her in Brazil for the summer. She was going to be with her dad and her grandparents, and I had free time. So I was like, let's do it. Let's do it. And as the time got closer and closer to this trip, that's when things start to get a little frightening. So I don't know much about this girl, and the majority of our relationship has been built online. And despite having an amazing experience with her in person, there's still just a lot of uncertainty around her. And also just the situation of Brazil, like I'm going to a foreign country where barely anybody speaks English. The only person around where I was staying who spoke English was her. So, um, it wouldn't be easy to get back home if things go south, which, when it comes to emotions and romantic relationships, they can absolutely go south. So things got a little frightening, and I was starting to second guess a few days before the trip, like, am I really gonna go? But after talking to her, I once again mustered up the courage and went for it. So she lives in Rondônia, Brazil, which is in the northwestern part of the country, and it was not easy to get there. Took like 2.5 days of traveling, but after we reunited. And I think it is important to mention that before this trip, I was studying Portuguese for a month, and I can now speak at a basic level. But one plan I had was to surprise her with the fact that I could speak Portuguese, and I got her good. I wish you could have seen her face. I didn't record it. I had a plan to record it, but it didn't work out that way. Since I was pretending to not be able to speak Portuguese, and it was getting to the point where it was just unbearable, because I was limited to like 2 words, which was hi and all good, and you can only get so far with saying those things. And I was just like, I'm done. Started saying, yup, I can speak Portuguese. And it was like, her reaction was just disbelief. But it was just a really funny moment, and I wish she could have saw it on her face. But, anyways, so we reunite, and things are good. They're starting off good. But I could not have expected how things would turn out at all. And speaking of expectations, expectations ended up coming around to hurt both of us. And I want to speak briefly about what I learned about expectations through this trip. And there was a lot of buildup coming into this trip. And in that time, I created a lot of expectations and like desired outcomes that I attached myself to. And I had an intellectual awareness that expectations don't serve us. And when you grow attached to some expectation and it doesn't turn out that way and it makes you suffer for it, you know, like I didn't want to do that to both of us, but with the big buildup, I let myself do it, repeat this fantasy in my head of how I wanted things to turn out, it and I wasn't able to let all of that go coming into the trip. So it made things a little messy, but it was a part of the experience and a part of a learning journey that I'm on. So yeah, just that side note. Let's resume now. When I got to Brazil, that is when I started shifting myself more to, well, not necessarily shifting myself, opening myself up to the idea of being in a romantic relationship with her. And coming into this, I wasn't sure what I wanted exactly. And when I got there and got to see how she was and learn more about her and see how amazing she is and how big of a heart she has, then I was like, yeah, I think I want a relationship with this girl. So I had to do inner work to open myself up to that. And as things unfolded and we got to go on vacation together away from her family, and we got to have a lot more privacy. And we started to get more intimate with each other. It got to a point where, and I wouldn't have expected this at all, but while we were at our most intimate, my heart just totally pulled back, and all of a sudden so much uncertainty came into me. And at that moment I was like, oh my gosh, like what have I done? I'm now in this super shit situation, and started telling myself all of these crazy thoughts that like things were gonna start falling apart, and like I'd have to go back home early, and it was this mental and emotional mess for a little bit. So I was quick to express to her what I felt, and it was unbearable kind of holding that back, and I had no intentions of like hiding that, because being open and communicating is essential to relationships, especially romantic ones. So I told her how I felt, that I was uncertain, and that I was ultimately scared of love and scared of heartbreak and the pain that it brought me in the past. And revisiting that is not an easy thing to do. and opening myself back up to that. So she was super sweet about it and reassured me that no matter what, she's here for me as a friend and here to support me. So all of those thoughts of, oh my gosh, this trip's about to fall apart, faded away, and our trip would have a different dynamic going on from that moment. We ultimately decided that being friends was the best decision for us, and now being back from this trip, I think that it was absolutely the right decision. And although in the trip, I also agreed, but I was doing this inner work to open my heart, and now I have to reverse this work and start to let go. So it made things emotionally quite the challenge at times, but regardless of the emotional stress and mental stress that I endured in this trip, there was amazing highs that I got to experience, amazing adventures and super cool opportunities to meet people from Brazil and other parts of the world and see amazing new sights, creatures. Got to see a tarantula, which is really cool. Um, Monkeys as well. Super cool stuff. But yeah, the trip ended on a good note, ultimately. And looking back, there's so much that I was able to take from that kind of experience. And so many life lessons that I'm still processing. But this is something that I do want to share more of. I wanted to get this story out first to let you guys know that I did go to Brazil and that there's more content to come. So, thank you for my amazing friend who invited me into her home and her family's home. And thank you for an amazing experience. So, yeah, all right. More to come on this. Thanks for listening in, fam. See you soon.